On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're going to dive into the Oklahoma City Thunder possibly being the next wave of the Memphis Grizzlies. Could they be even better than this core in Memphis? And All-Star voting has opened. Plus, we're going to dive into your mailbag questions, all coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going to dive into the Oklahoma City Thunder being the next version of the Memphis Grizzlies, plus SGA's quote about breaking records should make you very, very, very excited, and going to discuss your mailbag questions about Lou Dort, about the future of this team, and discuss tonight's game about Portland. But today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service. BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Learn more, save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right. The long-awaited hot take that I have been saving for you, and I'm not sure how hot this take is going to be. You might vehemently agree, you may vehemently disagree, you might think that this is a very lukewarm take. So, subscribe on YouTube and drop below in the comment section on YouTube. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the hottest of hot takes, how hot is this take regarding the Thunder and Memphis Grizzlies? I want to know your opinion on it as well. So let's just dive into this whole, can the Thunder be the next Memphis Grizzlies? Because I think that they can. In my opinion, the Thunder are set up to be what Memphis is and could even be better than what Memphis is. Because Memphis is the darlings of the NBA media, whereas the Thunder have been battered around, beaten down by the national media, despite never finishing, fourth worst, worse than fourth in the NBA, standings. Like, when you look at that, and somehow OKC's become the black eye of tanking despite them only finishing bottom 4. Like, they've never finished bottom 3, bottom 2, bottom 1. They've only finished 4th in the reverse standings. 24 wins last year. Like, when you look at this run from the Thunder, it's not been this black eye that the national media wants you to believe it's been. Whereas Memphis has been treated as, the darlings of the NBA. But let's look at how the rosters are constructed and going to be constructed. So for Memphis, they are a deep, young, fun team. And they started out with a nice little play-in run. And then they're now, after that play-in run a couple years ago, battling for the best record in the NBA. They sit 19-11 right now, which is, a top 4 or 5 record in the NBA. But the thing is, they're 19-11 right now, and they're missing Desmond Bane, who is one of their best players, if not their second best player on that roster. I think he is the second best player on that roster. They've also shown that they have a great record whenever Ja Morant doesn't play. And so as a side note here, stop tweeting out about Josh Giddey like, the Thunder are 7-0 without Josh Giddey. Well, yeah, Memphis is incredible too without Ja Morant. Does that mean that the Grizzlies should never play Ja Morant ever again? Does that mean that the Ja Morant experience in Memphis is not going well? Does that mean that the Grizzlies don't need Ja Morant, they should trade him? No. It's just, especially 7 games, it's such a small sample size. It's just silly. But let's compare these two teams now. So Memphis has a smart, young, really good coach in Taylor Jenkins. The Thunder have a smart, young, and really good coach in Mark Daigneault. The Grizzlies have a young superstar guard, Ja Morant. The Thunder have a young superstar guard, SGA, who is top 3 in scoring in the NBA right now, who is prolific at getting to the free throw line, who has improved his defense dramatically this season, who's improved his playmaking this season, who can do everything on the floor, who can take over games, who can win them for you and carry a team night in and night out. 2 for 2 so far. Both teams have a big man that is incredibly high-ceilinged, that is viewed as could be possibly a unicorn, that has prolific shot-blocking ability, that can be something we've never seen before if they hit their true potential, their true ceiling, and that's, of course, Jaren Jackson Jr. from Memphis and Chet Holmgren for the Thunder. And I'd argue, I think a lot of people would argue, that Chet Holmgren's ceiling is higher than Jaren Jackson Jr.'s ceiling. So edge to the Thunder, maybe, in that category. But it doesn't stop there. Both teams have amazing defenders that can get wild offensively, and you've got to tame them back into their role. Dylan Brooks for Memphis and Lou Dort for the Thunder. Both teams have nice first-round picks that have groomed not into these like amazing players, but to nice rotational pieces in Brandon Clark for Memphis and Pokashevsky for the Thunder. And then I think both teams have found a homegrown running mate for their star guard. Memphis has Desmond Bane, who is an incredible player, is still very underrated and should get more attention for how good he is, both as a three-point specialist, both on the defensive end, and both as a offensive connector and an offensive threat more than just his three-point shooting. The Thunder have drafted Jalen Williams, who I think can reach that ceiling. They also have Josh Giddey, who can reach that ceiling. They have two options there to try to find the number two from a homegrown asset and a homegrown aspect. Memphis made a trade. They went and traded for Steven Adams, which has really tied this core together and has really gotten them to the other side. And he uses his skill set both on the defensive end and also screening and helping out and complementing your best player in John Morant is what Adams does. And it's helped them tie the core together. And Steven Adams is not some blockbuster name. It's not as though they went and traded for Kevin Durant or went and traded for a disgruntled superstar. They made a move for Steven Adams, which was a low-key move that tied this core together. The Thunder have the assets to go either direction. They have the assets in the cap space to do the same, get a Steven Adams type of player who is a really, really, really good player, but not an all-star, not a superstar, but it's what you need. Right? It's like eating green beans. It's not what you want. It's not the chili cheese fries, but it's what you need. They also have the assets to go get a disgruntled superstar player to add on to this core that we're already discussing. And for the Thunder, that's kind of where like the big names stop for Memphis. For the Thunder, still got to find the ceiling of Josh Giddey. There is still the ceiling of Ousmane Dieng that has been flashed at the G League level, has had a great game in Atlanta at the NBA level, and we're not sure what Ousmane Dieng can become as a very, very young player and picked in the lottery. Josh Giddey picked at 6th, and Ousmane Dieng picked at 11, who Sam Presti traded 3 first-round picks for. And not to mention, on top of those two players, on top of going the trade route if they ever wanted to, the Thunder have a 2023 first-round pick in a deep and loaded NBA draft this upcoming July that'll be positioned very good, in the sweet spot of getting a very, very good player. And so then you look at the role players for Memphis. Tyus Jones, really good. Santi Aldama, really good. John Conchar, really good. OKC has those options too. Wiggins has been really good, undefeated with him in the starting lineup. Kenny Hustle has been really good. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl has been a solid, really good pickup. And then Isaiah Joe, who has been fantastic this season, has been the best three-point shooter in the NBA almost. Like, he's been incredible this season, depending on what metrics that you want to look at and use. And the Thunder have an incredibly smart front office. They have a good coaching staff, a really, really good coaching staff. And they're both in the Western Conference, which could lead to an epic rivalry. It could lead to a fantastic, playoff series multiple years in a row, and just these two teams battling it out from now on. And so far, Memphis has had the number on the court because their roster's more fleshed out, and Memphis is very well equipped to handle the Thunder right now in their current state, where they can pack the paint with their length and their size and their ability to deter at the rim. And then they funnel SGA to the rim where he wants to go. SGA right now on this roster does not have those prolific three-point shooters to kick out to besides Isaiah Joe. And so you're just kind of swarmed at that point. But as this roster gets more flushed out, Memphis is kind of the model that you're looking at. And the Thunder can take that model and run with it. The Thunder can take that model and improve it. The Thunder can take that model and be better than the example. This is going to be, I think, a very fun matchup to watch, two fun organizations to watch, because the Thunder's next moves on how they improve are very clear. They're in broad daylight. Memphis's next moves on how they alter their roster, on how they change their core, on how they try to take the next step, that is in the shadows. It's not as clear. You can't see that. It's not as evident to us from the outside looking in as OKC's. So I find both these paths to be very interesting. And my hot take is that while Memphis gets all the flowers right now, and while Memphis gets all the attention right now, in the future, 2 years down the line, we'll look back and say that the Thunder are in a better position, that the Thunder have the deeper roster, that the Thunder are capable of winning a title more than Memphis. It's not to start any controversy with our good friends over at Locked On Grizzlies, because I love the Memphis Grizzlies. I love watching them. But it's just when you look at the pure assets that are on this team for Oklahoma City and that they're capable of with Sam Presti at the helm. We'll talk about SGA wanting to break records and why that quote should excite you coming up. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at BetterHelp. Folks, BetterHelp is incredible. They have what you need because, unfortunately, life does not come with a user manual. So when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. Navigating any of life's challenges can make you feel unsure, whether it's a career change, a new relationship, or becoming a parent. Therapists are trained to help you find out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of this complexity engine called you, which is why BetterHelp can connect you with over 3 million people with licensed therapists, as they already have done for 3 million people. It is convenient, it's accessible anywhere, and it's 100% online. So whether or not you've been in therapy personally, you can really understand the level of help they can provide you coping emotionally, coping just in any way that you need with self-empowerment, dealing with trauma. It can really benefit you to get into therapy, and it's an easy way to take your first steps toward getting therapy at BetterHelp. So check it out today. BetterHelp is where you should look at and explore to see if they are right for you, because it is the world's largest therapy service. BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed therapists, and they're available 100% online. So go right now and save 10% off of your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/lockedonnba. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedonnba. BetterHelp.com/lockedonnba. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On takes of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube, wherever else you get your podcast from, just like we are on YouTube. So again, comment down below what you think of that hot take. Is it a hot take? Do you think that it's very measured and correct? Or do you think that it's very out there and silly that I would compare the two and that Memphis is just clearly the better organization? Let me know what you think in the comment section on YouTube and on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. So, SGA wants to break records. He said after the game, was asked about Dame becoming the Blazers' all-time leading scorer. He says, does he ever want to do that? He says, absolutely. He says he plays this game to break records and to be the best ever. Well, that should be music to Thunder fans' ears. Because while the national media continues to want to push SGA out of Oklahoma City and continues to tell you, oh, he's tired of losing, oh, he's going to be frustrated eventually, oh, he wants to play in Canada so desperately bad because everyone wants to play for their hometown team. That's why Blake Griffin's played in Oklahoma City. That's why Trae Young has played in Oklahoma City. No, while they keep pushing SGA to Canada and keep pushing SGA away from the arms of Oklahoma City, at every turn imaginable, SGA has given you quotes that you can use to ward off and to fight off that narrative. Everything from trusting in Sam Presti to wanting to see this through in Oklahoma City to trusting his teammates here, the coaches here. At every turn, he's told you he's comfortable in Oklahoma City. And now, with this quote, it goes beyond the personnel in Oklahoma City. It goes beyond the PR spin that you could label the other stuff. This is him expressing something that's important to him. If you believe what he's saying, which we have no reason not to, he wants to break records. He wants to be the best ever. Well, folks, he's already on his second organization, so he had to start from ground zero. So those first 800-something points he scored in his rookie year don't count at all to try to break these records. He's had so far 3 full years in Oklahoma City. We're at the 30-game mark or whatever of year 4 in Oklahoma City, and so far he has accumulated 4,409 points as a member of the Thunder, compared to the Thunder's all-time leading scorer in Russell Westbrook, which is 18,859. And remember, Kevin Durant spent 9 years with this organization, was an elite-level scorer, and he only nabbed 3rd place on the all-time leading scoring list for Oklahoma City. Now, granted, Gary Payton is 2, so like 2nd place for Oklahoma City, whatever it is that you want to, however you want to bicker with that ranking, but still, if he truly cares, if Shea truly cares about breaking this type of record, to become a franchise's all-time leading scorer, to become a franchise's best of all time, to become one of the best in the NBA, whatever it is, if he cares about this specific milestone or any milestone like it to be considered a franchise's GOAT or a franchise's Mount Rushmore player or whatever it is, it has to be here. Because if he leaves, whenever that is, his new club, he starts at ground zero with 0 points. And there's just simply not enough time to accumulate 18,000 points, 19,000 points, 50,000 points, whatever it is at the next organization. And that's why what Dame did in Oklahoma City Monday was so special. And that's why those of you in the building especially should appreciate that you've witnessed history. Because think about this, folks. That is something that we truly may never see again. And that's not hyperbolic, because until this era switches over, as it's currently constructed, in the era of player movement, in the era of I'm going to switch teams every 4 or 5 years, you don't stick around long enough to become somebody's all-time leading scorer. You don't stick around long enough to become somebody's best player in franchise history. And so if that matters to Shea, if that matters to what he views as his legacy and what he views as, his impact on the game, then that is yet another quote from him that you can say, hey, he really does want to be here, that you can rest assured, hey, he really wants to be the face of one of the 30 NBA teams. He wants to be somebody who is name association with an organization. And loyalty could matter to Shea the way that it matters to Dame. It could not. We don't know. We'll never know the true, opinion of SGA behind closed doors. But as far as what he says publicly, which we have no reason as of right now to deny or to think he's lying, everything he said publicly has been about wanting to be in Oklahoma City and has been signs pointing to wanting to be in Oklahoma City. Because again, if this is something that matters to him, he cannot do it anywhere else but Oklahoma City. He can't do it anywhere else. Because starting from ground zero, unless he went to one of these expansion teams in 2 or 3 years, he can't do it. You can't start from ground zero in an already established organization in year 5, 6, 7 of your career and get to the top. And get to the all-time leading scoring record. So if that's something that's important to him, we'll see. But that is, again, something that I find very interesting to watch for. Also, All-Star Game voting has opened up. It's triple vote day on Sunday, so make sure that you pause your festivities on Sunday and log on to NBA.com or the NBA app on your phone and vote. You can only vote once a day now, and it's only on NBA.com. It's no longer on social media or anything else. So check it out on NBA.com, and you can vote once a day. SGA, of course, deserves to be an all-star, and he should be an all-star even without these votes, but still, go vote for him. Go make sure that he is appreciated for what he's done. He's been one of the best players in the league this season. I mean, truly and honestly, if you want to do this the fair way and vote based on merit, vote based on what a player has accomplished within this season from October to December and not a legacy award, SGA has been a top 3 player in the league from October till December. And so if that's your criteria, then it should be clear that he's a starter. Now, I would encourage you, in terms of your guard votes, only vote for Shea and Giddey or Shea and whomever. Don't vote for like Shea and Steph or Shea and Luka. It doesn't really help the cause that much, but either way, vote for Shea. Vote for Shea to be in the All-Star game, and we will see him in Salt Lake City come February for whenever the event takes place. Shout out to Locked On Jazz and the boss, David Locke. Now, I want to tell you right now, but your friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all of your info, stats, news, breakdowns, analysis, find the latest odds, trends, and everything from college basketball and football to pro football and basketball, even soccer, MMA, boxing, golf, whatever you have on your mind, you can bet at betonline.net. It's this easy. You open up their sports book, you go down to basketball, and boom, it pops up all the games tonight. And so the Thunder are 3.5-point underdogs against Portland at home on Wednesday night. You can bet on that over there at BetOnline, where the game starts. Make sure you check them out today. You can bet on that. You can bet on awards. You can bet on who will Zach LaVine get traded to if he's dealt. They have those odds up and running right now, as well as for DeMar DeRozan and other disgruntled players. So give them a shout out, give them a try at betonline.net. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Let's open up the mailbag for some 3 quick questions. This first one, at MK325491. Can we count on Isaiah Joe to be a rotational guy for OKC in the future? I've gone back and forth on this. I've been really struggling not to be over dramatic one way or the other. But my opinion right now is yes, that he should be a rotational guy for the future because it's so hard to find his specific skill set. Right? The difference between him and a guy like, say, Isaiah Roby, who was on the same type of deal where, you could have declined the option, which they did last year. You could have non-guaranteed his contract and just waived him, whatever it is. The difference is Isaiah Joe's skill set of shooting and shooting at this level, at this elite level of company in three-point shooting is so hard to find compared to Isaiah Roby's skill set. So just as an example of 2 fringe roster guys who one's going to take a leap and one didn't, it's because the invaluable measurement of the shooting that Isaiah Joe has, which the Thunder could not find for 9-10 years. So can you really afford to give that up? I also think that with Isaiah Joe, not just his excellent performances this season, which has been incredible. He's played very, very well in all of his games. He's shot well. He's scored well. He's been an awesome player. But also having an advocate in the room. I mean, Rossman comes over from Philadelphia this summer. The Thunder clearly value his expertise, clearly value his opinion, clearly have brought him into their inner workings of their front office and have made him a staple point of that. And for him to advocate for Isaiah Joe to get here in the first place, so he puts his resume on the line for Isaiah Joe, so to say, then for Isaiah Joe to get to Oklahoma City, then for Isaiah Joe to get here and play very well. He has an advocate in the decision-making room that I think will push for him to continue to be here because it was a gamble that paid off. They brought him in 3 days before the season started, all because Rossman said, hey, let's get this guy that Philly just cut. I know him. I worked with him. He's going to be a good guy for us to have. The Thunder brought him in. Turns out Rossman's been right, and the rest is history. So between his play on the floor, his contract situation, his skill set level that is hard to duplicate and hard to find just anywhere, and the fact that he has an advocate in the room, I think that he's going to be a guy for the future of this Thunder team, and he's on a very, very excellent, team-friendly, and cheap contract. At MBAM37, who is your top 3 favorite picks in the draft for OKC besides Victor and Scoot? For me, Cam Whitmore would be my, if you discard those two, it would be Cam Whitmore 1. For OKC specifically, I'm looking all at shooting, but just for the draft in general, that would be a different question. But for the sake of this question, I would go Cam Whitmore number 1. I really like Nick Smith as well, but I would go Cam Whitmore, Brandon Miller number 2, and then number 3, I would either go with Nick Smith or Amon Thompson. I lean Nick Smith because me personally, I'm kind of interested in how the scouting goes over these overtime elite prospects and their competition level and how you can judge a 20-year-old playing high school guys. But I do love Amon Thomas as well, so he'd be like 4 or whatever whenever you discount Victor and Scoot. I also like Grady Dick for this team. Also like Anthony Black for this team. There's a lot of guys who I find interesting for this Thunder roster up and down this draft board. But Cam Whitmore is my guy. I hope that they can find a way to get Cam Whitmore. Brandon Miller would be a very good option as well. And then you have the Thompson twins and Nick Smith and other guys. This is a very, very, very deep draft class, which is why it's very fun to watch this team and not worry about where their draft pick will be. Now, the next question and last one comes from at Chris Acosta. Long term, is Lou Dort a starter? The boring answer is I don't know. But the answer I think will happen, like if I had to give you a prediction today, what it looks like when this team is competing again, would be like a Thabo Sefolosha type of guy. Like, yeah, he's the starter. He's the guy that gets announced pregame, but someone else comes in off the bench and takes his minutes and runs with them. And then he can close out games and matchups where you need a defensive stopper. And so his name gets announced pregame, right? His name gets announced, and he gets to run through the tunnel and everything, run through the guys and all that. But closing time, he's not. It's going to be matchup dependent. Do we need more offense? Do we need more defense? And so you play that kind of game, and you could just sub him each possession in very close games in the playoffs. But nonetheless, that's kind of what I envision happening for Lou Dort, where he's not a staple of that starting lineup. He's not a for sure lock to play 33 minutes a night, but it is matchup dependent. He could start, could not, everything in that kind of realm of possibility. So that's kind of how I view Lou Dort right now. Obviously, all this is subject to change. They're all so young, and there's so many moving parts in all of this. But I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms, including on YouTube, and let me know what you think about that hot take, that the Thunder can be and will be better than the Memphis Grizzlies. Until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.